Hi, today I want to talk about the unsung treatment goals of complex PTSD recovery. And my name's Rachel McLeod. I'm a mental health therapist, a coach, and a therapist mentor. And I specialize in resolving symptoms, helping people do the brain work for resolving symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress. Brains have a beautiful process for this. That process can get blocked and stopped, interrupted, shut down, and so the brain doesn't actually resolve the symptoms it should be, and needs to be resolving. And so I help people get that functioning, get that back online, because when that's working, the your mind body system is able to do so much for you. So um, and that's some of the stuff we're going to talk about here. And I'm going to go hard on nerding out on you here. So I'm going to talk about this in as simple as I can do it, but I want you to see this from the brain's perspective. I want you to see this from the treatment perspective. These things are unsung because um, they're the little rungs in the bridge that make the bridge workable, that make it so that you can cross over from a complex PTSD to health and wellness, right? And you want all these little rungs in your ladder so that you can cross over. Because sometimes you get sent back and you got to go back over here and go back to complex PTSD land, grab some things, move it over, right? It's kind of a whole process, and all these little rungs matter. If they're not here, you fall through, and then people don't understand why. I thought I did this, and it can be really frustrating. But these guys, the ones I want to talk about, are huge. They seem little, but when I'm working with people, these are the guys I've got in the background, and I'm checking. Are we doing this? Is the brain doing this? The other person just wants to know, can I show up for my children? Can I stop spiraling out when my son makes this comment to me? That's what they want to know, right? But I know your brain has to make that for you. And I understand what your brain needs to accomplish to be able to make that for you and make it so that's a lasting program for you, not just willpower, which is not going to get this. You cannot use your willpower enough. We're talking about the working memory. You only get so much working memory. When stuff gets piled up there, stuff falls off, and then you're back to square one. It feels like you're back to square one. And we just don't want to rely on this, on your working memory and willpower for your ability to parent well and in alignment. I want that to be something that lasts for you, that you can rely on it, and that's not going away. It's not going to disappear, and we can layer that in. Obviously, we life in our children, I'm using children as an example today, but life brings us stuff that we, even though we've come to this certain level of mastery, now it's asking us to master more. So with children specifically, you're doing good, you've worked your way up, you've got you're like all masterful in here, and then they go and they want to do something else, and they do something else, and they need something else, and then you have to build for that, right? So I'm not talking about growth. I'm talking about a nice, healthy foundation that you can build from, that you can adapt with. And this foundation does not often get built well in complex PTSD, in complex developmental trauma. And so people feel things like they feel like they're delayed, or something's wrong with them, or they don't have what somebody else has. And there's truths in there that's true. There are delays in here. There are things that the brain wasn't able to work on and progress enough to get it matured. It's one of the treatment goals. So we're going to look at it. I'm going to make a little map for you here. Um, and um, and so yeah, and there's things that haven't been wired yet. There's things that should have been assembled during childhood that haven't been. We need to jump in and we need to get that wired. We need to get your brain able to do that, and brains will do this. Brains love that stuff. It's part of the whole neuroplasticity theory thing, and it's beautiful. So these are all things that can happen. And yes, you get the ultimate outcome of being able to show up well for your children. I had a client this morning, talk to me about how only after 3 or 4 sessions, they're able to show up for their children. They were able to help their children regulate, and that has never happened before. They usually just regulate while their child is regulating. Common. That's what we're working on. We want to be the parent that can stay emotionally regulated and emotionally mature and emotionally intelligent, right? So okay, I've said a bunch of stuff, but So I want you to follow along with me here, and I want you to be impressed. I want you to be impressed with your brain. I want you to say, "Ooh, that sounds awesome, Rachel." It's not going to sound awesome to you. It's going to sound awesome to me, but if you can look out for these things, then you will see yourself doing it. You will see new opportunities to help your brain accomplish the things it's trying to accomplish for you. And when it gets what it wants, you get what you want. Okay? So, let's go. Okay, so one of the treatment when we're thinking about complex PTSD, we're really thinking about trauma processing. This is a really important goal. This is super important, but it's really just the tip of the iceberg. And this is one of the challenges I had with learning EMDR and even some of the other interventions like tapping and these interventions are all wonderful. However, there's a lot more that goes into health and wellness for complex PTSD than just working through a couple of events. We also need to string the events together. We need to help build what wasn't built because of this event. This event was taking up the whole stage, and there were some other things during that time that needed to be done, and they didn't get done. Right? I'm going to talk about that. Okay. I think we are good. So, but I'm going to talk about. I'm going to introduce a concept. This is where I'm going to introduce my grid. Okay, I've got this thing going here. We've got three things. These are the things I'm looking for. I'm looking at simple, complex, and I'm going to say maturation. Mastery and maturation are a natural brain process. If you leave us doing anything for a certain amount of time, when we first begin, we will be at a baseline. When we finish it, when you take us out of the time frame, we are likely to be better. We are going to master things. We're mastering gravity right now as humans. We're mastering quantum physics. That's what we're working on. We're not there yet, but we are in the mastery process. We've mastered electricity and light bulbs, right? So everything that we do, we can quantify how well we're progressing by how much mastery is in there, right? We can tell if the brain is getting, if the processing process is running, mastery is one of the outputs. So I'm looking for mastery and maturation. Okay, it does, and this means I'm also looking at seeing things, and I'm noticing what level of development we're at. Is this infantile? Is this right? Because we regress to whatever our development is, wherever we're at maturation wise. We can be wonderful and totally masters in all these areas, but there's going to be an area where you're starting at the beginning. And this could be because you're having a growth, because and let's say you're growing and you just decide to do something new, right? You're at the infant stage there, right? But this also happens when we have traumas during earlier time frames and our brain can't get in that time frame to create maturation in there. So let's say you disagree with me and I start crying and fighting you and throwing a fit and stamping with my arms and legs. That's where I'm at, and that spot is toddler level. Right. And so we're kind of seeing what is what. I hope this is interesting for you, because if it's not, you've already left. So I'm going to just assume you're going to nerd with me like I want to nerd with you right now. Okay. So that's one of the things we're looking at. We've got simple and complex. Simple means that you can do it internally. You can do it individually. You can do this. Okay, that's a simple. There's also other simple things like internally, emotions are pretty simple. Behaviors are complex. Behaviors have to do with emotions, subconscious programming, thoughts, patterns, habits, flashbacks, all sorts of things. Training, conditioning. Behaviors are complex. Emotions are very simple. They're simple things that we're working with. So that would put us over here. But also, if you get a skill and you can do it pretty simply over here, can you do it with another person, with another part of yourself? Can you do the emotion work within an event, a more complex thing? Can you do it in a marriage? Can you do it in a system? Can you do it at work? Can you do it in your community? Where does your where does it end? Right? And so these are kind of the three things I'm assessing all the time. Okay. Um, because we have goals. We have goals in these areas. We want to be able to check this box. Yep, she can do it in the simple, or yep, he can do that internally. Can he process guilt? Yes. Okay. Well, no, we're working on guilt processing. It's a specific energy. It's a specific reporter. It's really important. Guilt is really important. We want to take this whole thing entirely through the mind body systems process. It's an electrical thing. It should be moving quickly. It's not moving quickly because it's painful. So the survival system is pushing away from it. We're trying to push it up, right? So we're working, that we're working with the survival system to get it to let things happen at the speed of electricity like it's supposed to be doing. But we're working on that until we can check, yes, he can do guilt. Okay, now, can he do guilt in a conversation with his spouse? No. Okay, no. Okay, so now we're working here, right? Okay, now let's say he can get it with his spouse. Where's he at? And is it take a long time, right? And it's okay if it does. None of this stuff is judgment. This is assessment. It tells us where the work is. Okay. Can he do this with his child? Can he do this with his boss? Can he do this with no? He can do it these three places, not over here with his boss. Too much, and then we're checking why. Right? And then shame. Okay, well, simple shame. Does he know? Is he processing shame? You see, it's just loops. It just loops, right? And the whole while, we're just building, helping the brain build, so that we can get over here and we check. X marks the spot. Okay, so one of the first things we want to do, and we're going to do this the entire time, because this is one of the big things that we're doing here in complex PTSD, is we're working on regulating the nervous system. Okay, regulating the NS. Got it? Okay, so first thing we're going to do is we're just going to see, can we do it in a very simple place? We're keeping this as small as we possibly can, because I know you want your life to be fancy, and I want your life to be fancy too. But your brain has a process for creating the ability to regulate its nervous system in all these places. And pretty soon, this process will be so far developed, you will not need to help. And it will be fast because we got mastery, right? We're trying to get your nervous system to be able to regulate itself masterfully. And right now we're starting with projects where it can win. So we want to do simple. And we match that with your brain state, with your nervous system, because simple is relative. But we want to start with really small little projects. And can we get it from a 10 dysregulated to an 8? We're celebrating. That's awesome. You have no idea how amazing that is. That is like cheerleaders, backflips, fireworks. It's amazing. And so we want to do that for a while. Pretty soon we'll notice that we can go from an 8, and it'll stay at an 8, and then we'll come from an 8 to a 5, right? And we're starting to really make progress. The survival system's getting pretty good at it. Next thing you know, we can have some distress. We can have a challenge, and like the mail. Let's say I used the mail last time, but I'm on a mail run. So you're thinking about going to the mail, your nervous system's freaking out, you're starting to fall asleep, you're starting to do survival nervous system regulation strategies, and all of a sudden you notice that you actually didn't fall asleep and you're feeling pretty good and you actually want to go get that mail. Okay, with the mail, and then we wake up tomorrow and you go get the mail and you're like, oh, there wasn't a problem there. Your nervous system learned how to regulate itself with your mail. Simple, right? And you and your brain had a victory, and we're celebrating, we're doing all the things. Now we want to see, we will do probably 3 or 4 projects like that. We want your brain to really get full of itself. Be like, look at me, look what I can do. We want all of that because it has been a lifetime struggling and not being successful regulating. And a lot of times with complex PTSD, there should have been so much nervous system regulation between the years of 0 to 7 that we would be finished with this stage right now. Right? But we're not. We not only do we need to regulate you for this moment, but at the same time, because your brain does not understand time and all of that still happening in your nervous system, We also need enough nervous system regulation to help with that stuff as well. So we're going to do this a lot, but we're going to focus on small projects. Okay. And so let's say we're doing that now. Can you regulate your nervous system in a conversation with somebody that you typically dissociate with, let's say? Right? There's strategies for this. We're going to practice this, practice this, practice this. There's lots of skills, and you don't have to do this work in the conversation, right? We're going to do the push-ups outside the conversation so that all of a sudden you're in the conversation and you're like, wow, I didn't regulate. I was actually myself. Huh. Yeah, that's right. Brain. Good job. High five. And we're moving, right? We've got a place where we can check off simple. We've done simple 4 or 5 times. We've got some confidence there. And the nervous system's funny because we're self-organizing. And so if you teach it to successfully work with distress, guilt, nervous system dysregulation, all of a sudden, after about the 3rd time, it's like, I see you. There's a pattern here. And then you go and you're going to do it the 4th time. And it's like, ooh, let me help. Your brain is like, let me help you with that. Let me see if I can do it too. And so you guys are working on it together. By the 5th time, by the 6th time, your brain is like, I think I can do this. Let me try. Let me try. And you're watching and you're like, okay, you're doing okay, but I want to help too. You know, it's like toddlers. Me do it. Same thing. Our brain is the same way. And so we're going to be in the background helping out, but it's growing, right? It's like holding somebody who's got a broken leg and they're doing the walking stuff and we're doing lightweight work. Right? Next thing you know, they're walking faster. We want your brain doing this with nervous system regulation. So we're going to practice it with it. And so pretty soon it can do it here, it can do it here, and pretty soon it's really got some good processes going on. So we're gonna break this down. We've got 4 areas. Maturation. So we're noticing it getting better and better and more skilled. So it was maybe at the infant level, it's just screaming, or a toddler, a newborn, it's just screaming. But now it's at a place where it's like a teenager. It's like, I'm doing pretty good. I only need a little bit of help, right? That's where we're making progress there. And then pretty soon we've got mastery. And if you'll look around in your life after this work, you'll notice that in most areas, your nervous system's doing a really good job regulating itself. And there are a couple of hot spots where it still needs help. It's still back at earlier levels of maturation, okay? Or it's still in the process of mastery. Okay, so this is cool. One of the other unsung treatment goals of complex PTSD, and I'm going to cite no right here. When I'm talking about treatment goals, I don't care if you're treating yourself. I don't care if you're being treated by an acupuncturist, a medical doctor, a mental health therapist, an energy worker. I don't care who is doing your treatment. If it's you or somebody else, these are things that you're really going to want to make sure are there. And the second one is establishing healthy new regulation processes and patterns. This is a little bit different than regulating the nervous system. 1, we are just regulating. But 2, we want to establish a new pattern. I have a video on this where I draw this out with complex PTSD. It's called Learning to Be Safe for the First Time, or Learning to Feel Safe, something like that. I may try to attach it to this. Anyway, that when out of complex early trauma, our nervous systems are really dysregulated, right? We might look calm like cucumbers on the outside, or we might look like we're in severe depression, or we might look like we're high performers, hypervigilant. We might look any kind of way, but our nervous system is up here, and it's just flatlining at distress, right? We want the nervous system to learn that you get distressed and then you come down. And then you get distressed and you get loud. And so that's one of the things, the second outcomes we're looking for out of the regulate the nervous system process, right? At first we want to know, can we do it? Okay. Now we want to know, can we do it a whole lot? Can we get masterful? Now we want our nervous system to say, oh, wait, we're supposed to come down here and regulate. Oh, okay, I can do that. And then if it goes up because somebody says something or something triggers you, can you come back down? How quickly can you come back down? These are the next things that we're seeing. We want to see these new healthy processes and patterns show up, not only as an individual in simple situations, but also in more complex, when there's more systems, more people involved, couples, relationships, children. Those are different places. And some people are like, but I was so good at this, but then my mother-in-law came and said this, and now it's just well, your nervous system just said that you can do it over here, but not over here. So this is where we need to help it get to work and build that. Okay, so That's what we're doing. Okay, so new patterns. Um, okay, the next thing that one of the things we want to do is one of the goals. This is very similar to, I just spelled that wrong. Oh well. Um, there was enough room. Okay, we want to regulate, we want to rewire to accuracy. Um, one of the problems with complex PTSD, if you could see this from your brain's perspective, is that your brain's job is to take every now moment and help you figure out what's going on here. Your eyes are actually, you're seeing, your eyes are picking up all this stuff, and in the back of your brain they're like organizing this and showing you what you're seeing, right? This is challenging when PTSD is present as well, because when we're having interactions with people or seeing things, the unresolved, unprocessed post-traumatic material is also present in what we're seeing, feeling, smelling. Those are types of flashbacks, but they're common. And when you've got complex PTSD, it's almost like you're wearing my childhood goggles, and I'm looking out at the world. I'm seeing things accurately. I've got the accurate data in there, but I've also got this thing my mother said, this thing my father said, that thing that happened one time, this, because your brain hasn't been able to process stuff and put them where they belong up in your neural network and all the things, that they're still in their unprocessed form. And so your brain doesn't really understand them. And so, but your brain is like, when it's using our past and using all that we know to understand our present. And so it's hard to, when your brain is like, oh, let me show you what this moment is about. And it shows you all the stuff, a hodgepodge of things, and it doesn't make any sense. And you're like, responding to some of the things because you don't know which one is which, because your brain actually hasn't sorted them out for you yet. And so, and then whoever you're talking to is like, what are you talking about? I don't know you're talking about that. And now you've got this whole dance going on, and you're confused and they're confused. And PTSD is about resolving. This is where trauma processing helps a ton. We're regulating nervous system and processing. And so we're getting the stuff, the unresolved trauma processed. And so that, then it gets up here and it starts, it's learning about what was in there. Oh, we thought this was happening now. It's not. This was in 2007. Oh wait, this one was this, and it's date sorting them. It's understanding the nuances. Oh, that face, I thought that face meant run. No, it means this. It means this and this and this. And your brain is getting more and more accurate, and it's pulling these things out so that all that's left in this moment is accuracy. Okay, now accuracy is also relative, but we'll know if your brain is accurate to you if it's helping you create the health and wellness that you want. Okay. And this is a side product, but this is much different than just doing some EMDR work. This is much, we want to work through events, and then we want your brain to really kind of string them together with more and more understanding. We don't want them to just be, oh, I worked through that, we want the space in between them to be filled with accuracy. I think that's the best way I can say it at this point. I think I might come back around to that one. But this is a natural function. It's a natural side effect of, if you're regulating your nervous system, you will notice your brain being more accurate. You'll probably get feedback from the people around you that you're more accurate, and they might say it in, oh, that was a really easy conversation with you, or gosh, I feel seen. It really feels like you're getting me. Like, you'll get that sort of feedback from them when your brain is processing, and it's really strange. This is a really strange thing. I will have people will have a challenge in the present, and we will go back to a past issue, resolve that there, and then this issue will run just fine, even though we didn't work on it directly. We worked on the root issue involved with it, and all of a sudden this is running well, and then people are like, oh, that was really easy. So we're creating, this is a natural process, and it's one of the unsung amazing heroes in treatment that I don't want you to see. Your treatment goal is, well, I worked through 20 of my childhood memories. That's wonderful. I love that. And there's more. There's so much more here, and you can watch it. You can help it. You can be intentional with it, and you can really guide your brain to those things as well. Okay, so rewiring to accuracy. Okay, can you be accurate in your inner world? This happens a lot when people have trauma with anger. They saw everybody in their family angry. Maybe they grew up in a domestic violence situation in their home, and they've really learned that anger is really awful. And and so they're talking with me about something, and they're saying, "I'm so sad," and I know that how they're presenting is not sad at all. Like they've got their emotions wired incorrectly. And so we're starting to process that. And I'm waiting for their brain to say, this is, to speak about this accurately. And it pretty much will. And if it's not, I'll say, you know what I'm observing? That it sounds like this is a little bit less sadness and a little bit more anger. And all of a sudden the brain is like, you're right. But then the brain is like, we're not supposed to be angry, right? And now we're regulating the nervous system to anger. We want the nervous system to start being safe and feel safe and regulated with anger, right? So that is super, super, super important, because then you'll watch these individuals start to say, I'm really feeling angry. Now we're talking accurate. We treat things differently. About if someone's sad, we treat them differently. If we're angry, we treat that differently. And if for them to be able to run this, they're going to be able to work with that emotion better, because they're not going to have to do some convoluted backflips, right, to work with their anger through sadness. Right? It's not accurate. And so we want to know, it's simple. Can they get accurate with an emotion? Can they get accurate with sensations in the body? Can we get accurate with lots of different things? I see this with people that have childhood traumas that were really terrible, but now they've glossed over it, and they're like, my parents were wonderful, even though they trafficked me and they sold me for drugs. And right, that's not accurate. Right. And so we want to see, that's a complex, that right here, that wiring to accuracy, it falls in the complex area right here. And so maybe they're not able to be accurate there. That's okay. We're going to start over here. We're not touching that, because their brain needs that and it's not able to do that yet. So we're not going to crash their system. Hey, you need to be accurate. No, you don't. You didn't need to be accurate all these years. You don't need to be accurate now. But hey, what can we walk your brain through the process of getting accurate with? And pretty soon it'll be confident enough that it'll be ready to go do these other more complex things. And it'll be building mastery, internal mastery, and maturation. And then pretty soon it will go ahead and we'll be ready to move it into complex mastery. Complex, that they will be able to start. This happens naturally. It's unfortunate, but I just hate that. I hate that whole thing, that we come out of childhood with these beliefs that we have manufactured about reality because we needed them to survive. We needed to look at our parents and our situation in a way that kept us safe and not accurate. But it's beautiful at the same time. So it gets to stay beautiful. So here in this spot, it's no use to go do this if you can't do this. Right? And it's no use to expect mastery if you can't do this, in maturation. So I have some other treatment goals. I think I'll work on those ones on my next live. And so we'll just keep this one small. So, but these are really important. They're beautiful. They sound really nerdy, but this stuff doesn't take a long time, and we should see them happening. This is when I'm having, let's say an hour session with someone. This is what we're doing, about 30 minutes of that time. And it's a lot of work, and we will get through stuff, and there will be maturation. There will be progress. There will be that stuff, because brains are doing this stuff naturally, automatically. They're wonderful at this, and we can rely on them for that. So I really want you to think about your brain as one of your best helpers, and I want you to understand it so you can be one of its best helpers. That's a huge goal. So I also want to tell you that if you want to learn my favorite ways of regulating the nervous system and helping the brain create all these shifts, I've created a free program called Interventions for Inner World Transformation. These interventions work specifically with your survival system. So they're very different. They're not like talk therapy strategies because I'm not really interested in this part of the brain. That part's wonderful and fabulous and does not usually need our help. It's the survival system, and it is loves it when you're like, yeah, get that part of the brain. It's just messing me up, right? It's a whole mess in there. But um, so every part of your brain benefits when we start working and supporting the survival system. All these processes work beautifully, and if you find one of these interventions that I'm sharing in this that work for you, you have a working way of doing powerful work with your inner world. You will see yourself move through these pieces. I'm not certain you have the skill set to notice what you're doing, what your brain is doing, but you can build that. And if you do find an intervention that works for you, I have built an 8-part program to walk people through this. This is what I use for my coaching clients, my therapy clients, to help them heal and recover, to do the brain work of resolving symptoms of anxiety, depression, and traumatic stress, including complex PTSD. And it's actually built for that. It's anyway. All the other ones are much more simplified versions, and this program really helps people resolve that so quickly. So I invite you to try that. I've left the information in the comments, not the comments, the description here. The link is there to my free program and also to Inner World Transformation, where you can see about following my whole process. See if you want to take an 8-week journey with me to heal and get your brain doing all these beautiful things. So I'll see you next time, and we'll talk about the other goals. Take care.